This lesson is going to be over media bias. For Unit 2, it's all about media literacy and critical thinking. And a really big part of that, we talked about fake news last week, and then we're going to really focus on this idea of what bias is. So you only have to watch this video if you did not attend our Zoom, which is going to be Thursday at 9 a.m. So if you attend the Zoom, you don't need to watch this. But if you cannot or did not attend that, when you're watching this, then you need to be doing this. So let me show you kind of what you should be, what you need to have up with you right now. So in Schoology, in this folder, you will see it says bias Prezi notes. So you need to make sure you are taking notes on there. It is in there as an assignment because I want to see these notes after you're done, but you'll keep these notes for yourself. But you do need to submit these. So you should have this bias Prezi notes up, and then I'll make sure you know what you need to write down for all of those. So let's get into it. What we're going to be using is this presentation. There we go, sorry. And it really does a great job of going into bias in the media and what that looks like. So bear with me, I'm going to move you so I can see my other screen as well, so I can follow along with our Prezi notes. Okay, so the first part of your Cornell notes, you need to answer the question, what is bias? So you need to write those in your own words. And what bias is it's this idea that there is some type of prejudice or some type of attitude towards a certain subject, okay? What I have here is that despite the journalistic ideal of objectivity, every news story is influenced by the attitudes and backgrounds of people involved in its creation. So all of us have bias, okay? Sometimes that's bias that we realize, sometimes it's bias that we don't realize. And that just means that you have an opinion. Now, the issue is when that negatively affects other people, and also is when bias in media, if you aren't aware of a news story that maybe isn't being objective, and by objective, I mean they are just presenting the facts, okay? They're not trying to convince you or persuade you of one way or the other. Where we run into issues with media literacy, and 8th graders run into this, adults run into this, it's a really big issue, is we consume and read news stories or share news stories that are not objective and that are biased, and we think that they're not, okay? And so it means that everyone has opinions, and that's not a bad thing. However, when you are using those, sometimes these news stories will try to persuade and say, hey, no, we are being objective. We're just presenting the facts, when in reality, they're not, and they are biased towards something. So we're going to go over a few ways on what that exactly looks like. So do make sure in your Prezi notes that you have written down a definition of bias in your own words. I'm going to give you just a minute to make sure you are writing that. Okay, and we're going to go on to the next one, which is we're going to go through all of these ways that you can detect bias in the media. And the media just means the news, okay? So there is this thing called bias through selection and omission. Omission means you leave things out, okay? So the answer to this is bias through omission or selection is leaving things out or giving more attention to certain details. Okay, so we're able to detect this. There's a few different ways that you can do this. So the example here is, and this is just a pretend news story, it says that the speech was greeted with loud boos of anger from concerned citizens. Or a few complainers among the excited crowd expressed their anger with boos, okay? We have one way is showing that it's like loud, angry, chaotic, like they hate this speech and the speech was awful and these people are so against it. And the other one is saying like, these people were very professional and they were saying, no, like we boo, that's so bad. Notice how this news story, it's two different things, okay? They're saying it in two different ways, but it's over the exact same speech. But notice how one of them is going to persuade you think that this speech was like awful and just people hated it. And then the other one is just like people, oh, they just disagreed with it. Okay. So that's bias through selection and omission. And you see that a lot. It is hard to detect because you need to understand the whole story, which is why it's important to, which we'll get into later, it's important to read a bunch of different sources about a single story. Okay, the next one is called bias through placement / headline. So the most common way that we can detect this is through clickbait. And so, I'm sure you've seen these different these different articles. I know YouTube videos were really, really big on clickbait. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, but like these, this is what, like, I'm leaving YouTube or whatever. Like, this is my goodbye. And it really wasn't. Like, they were like leaving for a day. Just like weird stuff like that. That is clickbait. And it's how we see that that's bias is they put the most important details to them at the top of the story or in the headline. Okay. So where the news stories put the information matters. If whatever they decide to put in the headlines, it can typically, you can see what their bias is towards. Okay, the next one, this is a really good one called bias through word choice and tone. So this is like with the literature element of connotation. So remember the difference between saying childish and youthful. So if you say that I have a youthful glow to my face, I would say thank you so much. This is my skincare routine. And then if you said your face looks childish, that's offensive. Like I would be offended by that. Or if I say, hey, you guys are acting really childish right now, you'd be offended by that. Childish and youthful mean the same thing. Okay, they basically mean the same thing. They mean young. However, it's the word choice that you use. It's the tone of how you say it. This goes along like even when you hear things. So I know a lot of you, if you hear your full name, your first, middle, and last name, you just hear it. But then if your mom says it or your dad or grandma and grandpa or whatever says it a certain way, you're like, oh no, I know I am in deep trouble. So that is all about tone. So news reporters do this too. If they use positive or negative connotations, it's going to strongly influence how you're reading it. Okay. So if there's a news reporter that's reporting on a hockey game, they could, and this team loses, they could say that that was a loss, that it was a close game, or that it was a near win. All of those mean the same thing. It means that they lost the game. Okay, that one team lost the game. But how you say it is going to show what bias you have. If I say the Yankees had a major loss or the Yankees had a near win against the Red Sox, that is going to be, you're going to see two different ways. If I am saying the Yankees had a loss against the Red Sox, you might say, oh, okay, I guess maybe she just doesn't really like them. If I say the Yankees had a near win, they were so close, then you would say, oh, it sounds like Miss Sapanoff is a Yankees fan. Okay, so it's the words that you choose that's going, or the words that news stories choose are going to really, really show you if they have bias or not. Okay, the next one on your Cornell notes, you're just saying whether this is true or false. So bias with photos, captions, and camera angles. Now, a lot of times we see this, you are able to really see that these are biased. So if a news station is reporting using this photo of Barack Obama, what do you think that they're going to say about it? You probably think that it's going to be like that he's silly or ridiculous or he's not a good president. And then this one is a professional photo. Okay. Now this one, it looks like they just took a screenshot of like him laughing or something, but it's whatever photo they choose to use is going to show bias. News stations or news sources that like Barack Obama will probably choose this photo. News sources that don't like Barack Obama will probably choose this photo. Okay. Okay, and then we are almost through with bias in the media. So now this is going to be bias through names and titles. if this is a news story, I want you to see how using a name or a title is going to completely change the feel of the story. So if you read mother of two was arrested, when you identify someone as a mom, that creates sympathy or like this additional shock. Okay, there's bias there if the news story is reporting it as a mom. Now, it's not saying that that's fake. Okay, there's a difference between fake news and bias. But choosing to call them out as a mother typically is going to be used to create some other type of feeling rather than just being objective and saying a woman was arrested. See how if you say a title, it's going to be, you're going to have a different like feel for it. If they say that that COVID is a serious problem, that might be objective. They say COVID is catastrophic for the United States. See how those titles, those names, they have two different feels to it. Okay, and then the last way that news sources can show bias is through statistics and crowd count. So again, this is not false reporting. This is not fake news, but it's how they are reporting. So if they say at this election rally, more than 900 people attended the event, you would read that and be like, oh, a lot of people attended the event. There must have been a lot of support. Now, if a different news source, but they were against this rally, is reporting on it, they might say fewer than 1,000 people showed up at the event. Okay, that one makes it sound like, well, I guess it wasn't that big at all. Do you see how it's the same statistic? Okay, we don't know the exact number, but I don't know. Let's say 950. They're both reporting on 950, but one of them has a bias by saying that more than 900 people attended the event, and the other one has a bias by saying fewer than 1,000 people attended the event. They are both talking about 950 people. One is saying that's a ton, one is saying that's not at all. Okay, so there's two different views there. And that's really, really important. That's why you need to make sure you are digging deep and finding what the actual number, the actual statistic is, and making that decision for yourself. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to go over with you. So you should have those Cornell notes. Go ahead and wrap those up, finish those, and you can go back and rewind and whatever you need to do for the Prezi and for this video. But I want to go over a chart here because this should make a lot more sense now that you have listened to the video. So this is what's called the media bias chart. This is not something you need to memorize. This is something that you need to be familiar with because through this unit, we are going to be looking at stories from different news sources. So the same story, and that's what you're going to be doing above in the part one, is you are going to find one news story and then you're going to read it from a few different views. So these are all really popular, common news stations, and it's going to show you what is more reliable and then what is not really reliable. Okay, so it's really important that you're familiar and you are at least aware of these. This chart does a great job. So anything in green is going to be pretty reliable. And then it goes a little more unreliable as we go lower. And then notice like right down here, like the Inquirer and things like that is not reliable at all. Things like New York Post, Daily Mail, CNN, those aren't bad, but you just have to watch for their bias. So I want to show you this media bias chart, okay? So we have things that are left, things that lean towards the left, central, things that lean towards the right, and things that are right. And by right, I mean conservative, okay? Left means when you hear the word left, you're going to think more liberal. Right is more conservative, okay? And then C is central. That means that these are typically, and you still have to be very aware, but these are typically more objective. So And these are going to be some of the most reliable sources. So things like BBC, NPR, The Hill, USA Today, Wall Street Journal. All right, so these are the central ones. Things that are going to lean right, so that are going to have more of a conservative bias, are going to be things like the American Conservative, Fox News, New York Post, Post Millennial, Wall Street Journal Opinion, rather than Wall Street Journal News only. Lean left, these are going to be things like The Atlantic, ABC, CNN, NPR Opinion. Notice that these are more opinion on the lean, and then while in the middle it's the news only. And then things that are very much in the left, so that's going to be like BuzzFeed News, HuffPost, MSNBC, and then very much in the right is going to be like Fox News Opinion, The Federalist, New York Post Opinion. It doesn't mean that any of these are inherently bad, okay? You are going to decide for yourself what you agree with, or maybe what you align yourself with, but you just need to be aware, and you're going to be looking for those different biases, all right? So when we want objective ones, we're going to look more in the middle. These are just going to be more just reporting. Again, they're all going to have some type of bias, so make sure you are being aware and looking at that. But then things on the left, you'll see how they're biased, and they're leaning more towards the left side of things, or more liberal side of things. And then the right, they're doing that with conservative and more like, more conservative and right type of things. What you need to make sure you do for this is you are going to find a news story, and it's going to be about one subject. You need to find it one that leans left and one that leans right. Okay, so you might, and do that over something that you're interested in. You can do it over COVID or the election or whatever you want, and you can use your article from right up here. So then you only have to find one more. So you should only find 2 articles total. And so if you're going to do one on COVID-19, you are going to find an article. Maybe you want to do the COVID-19 vaccination. You're going to find one that CNN News Only does. Okay, maybe that's one that you found for up top. And then you're going to find one that Fox News Online News Only does, and see how they both report about the same subject, and they have different biases for it. Again, you don't need to memorize this media analysis chart, but we are going to really be talking about it in depth and kind of going into some different biases that news sources may have. Okay, so you should be good to go on this media analysis assignment and the photo media assignment. Make sure you send me a message on Teams or send me an email if you have any questions. Again, we'll be doing another live class after Thanksgiving. Excuse me. And so if you don't want to watch a long video, come join that class and we'll have a good talk. All right, guys, send me an email if you need me, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.